Have you ever built a website and forgotten to do the responsive design? Well, today we're building this pricing calculator, and I kind of forgot to do the responsive design. So that's what we'll be looking at. We'll be doing the desktop version, the tablet version, and kind of redoing the mobile version. Let's get started. In the last video, we actually created this website calculator design from the Figma design that we had over here from a mobile device. There's one thing that we didn't do though. We didn't create the tablet or the desktop versions of these designs. We did this inside of Editor X, and here's a small tip. When you're building designs in Editor X, always start with the desktop first and then move down to the tablet and mobile devices. Do you know why? Because the rules defined in such site builders often are created in such a way as to advocate for this kind of a structure. If you try to go mobile first, some of the rule sets won't apply correctly. And this is the lesson I've got to learn the hard way today. So what we'll be doing is redesigning this a little bit here in the desktop format first. We're then going to transition this down to the tablet version, and after that we're going to transition it down back to the mobile version, which we currently have working. But if we make any changes here whatsoever in the other designs, they're going to be affecting our mobile viewports. So let's see how we can first start off with a desktop design for this, which will mean that we'll have to extrapolate one from the design files, but I think we can do that. Let's start now. Now, the first trick that I want to apply is the fact that most styling on Editor X is actually happening down the scale of responsive design. So as you can see here, some of the font sizing, coloring, as well as topography that we've set here simply hasn't applied on the tablet version. Now, we can have a quick fix for that, and that is by creating an override rule that applies on all breakpoints. Here we've got an option when we right click to use on all breakpoints, and this is what I want to do. So I'm actually going to select this, and I'm going to select a use on all breakpoints on the entire section. I want to see how that applies, and we can see that as soon as we've done that, it's applied to the tablet version as well as the desktop version. There is still some styling issues here which we can fix up, but at least this gives us a quick idea of how we can update this design. Of course, if we undo that and we want to only specifically select one item to then say use on all breakpoints, we would see that fix being applied just to that one item. But since all of our design needs a little bit of a fix, then instead of just doing that one item, I'm going to select the entire section here, and then I'm going to select to use on all breakpoints, and we can see how that's taken effect. Now, the tablet is closer resembling a good design, but the desktop does not look good at all right now. We've got a lot of overlaps happening, so this is where I think we'll begin. Now, first, I want to actually expand out the size of this section so we can fit everything into this pricing calculator. Here, there's a few things going a little bit haywire. Firstly, we need some sort of a grid or structure in place, because right now it's sort of kind of just expanded out on the page with all the margins and paddings kind of everywhere. Now, there's a few different ways we could do this depending on how we want things to resize properly, but right now they're resizing quite well. So instead, what I'm thinking is just to update their configuration a little bit. What we could do is put everything in this section with the same sorts of offset margins on either side. That's one way I like to do things. And we can also increase some of the font sizes for some of these things too. So here for website calculator, I'm going to increase the font size here to maybe something like 48 pixels. And instead of having this line break, I'm just going to have it all on a single line. Since we've got more vertical and horizontal space, we should utilize that effectively. Here we could even make that a little bit bigger. I'm going to give maybe 64 pixels a go, and this is almost the same size as the logo here, so I think that should do well. I'm going to move it up a little bit as well, and here I'm going to expand out this text and put it right below. Now this is quite large, but it's also quite easy to read. The next thing I can do is start playing around with these containers here that we have stacked. I'm just going to move the stack up a little bit here. And this stack actually does have a position. So I'm going to actually update the position here, making sure that it's all reset to 0. And I'm going to have a look at these items over here as well, making sure their positions are also 0. Now, when we do this, what we're effectively doing is making sure that everything is properly aligned in terms of the docking. If I move my head over here a little bit, you'll notice that there is this docking menu on the bottom here. And here we're defining how everything exists. So here I want an offset of say 20 pixels between one item and another. So I'm adding in a margin of 20 pixels. Now this is quite useful to create that consistent structure, but sometimes we get like 1 or 2% offsets from the left hand side, and this is where we can fix that up. So let me actually clean that up nicely to make sure it's all aligned, and we can see it is now. And this is almost looking perfect. Now the other thing here is this section, or this sort of stack of the text that we have here. Now I'm gonna set this to have an offset of 20 pixels on the left here, and we'll do the same here for the description. And when we do this now, we can see that we've got more, well, vertical room across. So I'm gonna expand this out, and in doing so, we've got a bit more room for these two items. Now one thing we could do is make this item here smaller. And when we do that, we would have to change the min height. I think it's currently about 90 when we have a look at the top right here. So if I set that to say 60, I think I can set it to 60. Let me just have a look. 60 pixels. I don't think I'm doing that properly. That's min height, sorry. Let's do height, and we'll select that here to be 60 pixels. When I set this manually from automatic to say maybe 85 pixels, we can see this looks much better structured in terms of this content that's currently in this container. Now if I was to resize this container, see, it's being sort of stuck at say the pixel height of 85 pixels, but we can always change that in the responsive viewport. So let's leave that be for the time being and update all of these to be 85 pixels, as well as updating their positioning here on the left hand side, similar to what we have with the other items. I'll expand out this text here. I'll remove this minimum height. I'll set this to auto. We should be able to just select none here. We can see these items are now looking much better as to both their position as well as their layout and sizing for a desktop viewport. Now the other thing is sometimes you'll want to expand out these text boxes so that they don't break lines early on either, because that could cause some havoc, I suppose, and that's not always a good thing. But anyways, we're almost there. We just need a couple more here to be fixed up. Let me just set this to none, and then this one over here to 85 pixels. And this one is not going to 85 pixels yet. There we go. And then finally, we'll move this across to the left, and this one here across to the left, and expand this out. Beautiful. So now we've got all these items here in a nice little stack. And this stack should be resizable. So if we shrink it down here, we can see it's resizing okay. However, we are getting the website calculator text overlapping with our icon, and we should fix that up. So this will be docking once more. So what I'm going to select is I'm going to select this guy over here, which is our text. It's currently positioned, say, 0% off the left-hand side. This guy here isn't docked at all from the left. So this is where I'm going to add some docking with a percentage margin here. And I'm going to move this across to the left now. But now what you'll see is that it's resizing good without overflowing. But when we get to this point here, it's almost too far. So let me actually move this around, dock this. This is in pixels, whereas this item here is at a percent. So this is where like a pixel amount of docking might be better for us in terms of its positioning, because it won't overlap with the text and it'll stay next to the icon as well. We'll want to do the same here for this text, and we're going to set the docking from the left hand side with pixels, and now when we resize it, we can see it's all in place quite well. Now there is one extra item here which I'm not sure what that is doing there, but I'm going to remove that. And these items here, currently their width is, well, it's overlapping on the page, and that really shouldn't happen. So I want to play around with exactly what's causing that to occur. So here, if the width is 100%, 100%, and we have some positioning without any docking on the right-hand side causing an overflow, then realistically the only other thing that is happening here is it's the stack itself that is causing this overflow. So we'll select the stack here, and here we can see that it should have 100% width, so that's good. But then let's have a look at the other aspects of this stack. So let's jump back to it, and if we have a look here, we can see that it's offset 203 pixels from the top, but there is no sort of docking per se. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this out to a desktop viewport where it was just about perfect. I'm going to select this stack that we have here, and I'm going to dock it from the left and the right. So now when we resize it, you can see that it's, well, resizing properly up to a point. I think it's at just about this point, it's losing cohesion. I think that might be simply because these text elements here are overflowing. So I'm going to also dock these. Now when we dock these, we'll see the same effect take shape, where once we've started docking items, they're not going to cause other items to overflow. And I think that's the main issue that we're currently having. So let me just resize this a little bit more, and we can see already that's fixed up those small issues that we had. Now we've got a desktop version that can resize to any size, I think. And this is pretty much what we're after for this version. You can see it's an extrapolation of the mobile version, but it's taken to a degree where now it should fit for any type of size. Let's move on to the tablet size. If we keep shrinking this down, we'll eventually pop into this viewport over here, signified by this tablet. And you can see that unfortunately we're getting some of that overflow happening here. So let's see what can be done to fix these up. Now the first thing we can do is select the stack itself, and then just make sure that there is a 10% margin from the left and a 10% margin here from the right. Unfortunately, this margin on the right is not taking effect, and this would be because there is something here causing overflow. We could set the width here to 80%. What that's done is that it's given us 10% here as a margin from the left as well as the right, and 80% here to fill out the middle part. So that way we should be able to resize it nicely on this tablet viewport. Now we'll need to update some of these other items here, such as this text to be offset left 10% and maybe right 10% as well. And we could probably even do the icon here as 10%, which would mean that this text here might be something like 11.5%. If we resize these, we can see that they look okay, though I think the icon here and the text itself might be better as a pixel amount, just so that they always stay offset from the left-hand side here a little bit more cleanly. Because right now I feel like as a percentage, they sort of move about not correctly or not in the correct fashion. Yeah, well, from a tablet point of view, I think that just about does it. So we've got the desktop version working, we've got the tablet version working, and now we just need to finally do the mobile version, which we sort of did at the beginning, but we can redo this now with the new types of drop-down styling that's being applied from the top down. Now, this next bit is times 10 speed. I've time-lapsed it because I went through a little bit of difficulty, but I thought I'd let you guys see the debugging I did in order to get this all up and running. Firstly, I went through each one of the elements, giving it the same amount of margin and padding so it all looked consistent. Then I updated some of the boxing so that that would also be properly margined and resize accordingly to the mobile version. Then I updated all the text to be smaller so that it could fit into the smaller viewport as well. And then I moved about some of the elements to make sure that they can exist inside of this viewport without breaking some of the text that we currently have. And this is the final result. This project is being built as a community project for the community, ideally by the community. If you want to be involved, just jump onto the Discord below. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.